Torey Eisenman, Benchmark Real Estate Group with Brad Siebert from the mortgage firm. And Brad, I have people reach out to me and tell me that they want to buy a home, but they don't think that they can. So I personally, in 2008 and 2009, short sold a couple homes for business purposes. It made more sense for me. And I know other people do that for business purposes, or maybe they had a serious hardship and their home got foreclosed on, or they had a short sale property, they lost a job. You know, I think a lot of people don't feel like they can ever recover from that and buy a home again.
Right, and the truth is, we understand that bad things happen to good people, okay? Too many times people listen to what they hear on the internet or what their uncle that bought a house one time about 15 years ago. Oh, foreclosure means you can't buy for 4 years or 7 years or whatever it may be. But the actuality is if you've been through a hardship, and we'll call a lending hardship, something that was involving real estate. If you went through a foreclosure, if you went through a bankruptcy, if you went through a short sale, or you know what? You lost your job, instead of trying to save the home, you did the right thing and you deed and lieu. Yeah, you deed and lieu the property back to the bank, so they didn't have to go through the expense of going through a foreclosure. The reality is, we have programs now 1 day out of a foreclosure.
Really?
Yeah, 1 day out of a short sale. The longest we require is if you filed Chapter 7, 1 year. Okay? So everybody's different. Every situation's different. Now, these aren't your FHA loans. These aren't conventional. But there's a lot of loans out there that aren't conventional, that aren't FHA or VA, that most people don't realize exist. And if you're a buyer, we call them boomerang buyers. You know what? They had something bad in the past, and now they've rebounded and come back, and they're ready to buy. But you know, conventional loan says if you went through a foreclosure, you're done for 7 years.
Right.
Okay? If you went through a bankruptcy and included the foreclosure in the bankruptcy, now you're 4 years. But most people just don't have the knowledge to figure that out, and they're too embarrassed to call.
Right.
Okay? First of all, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. We know that, you know, stuff happens, exactly. So I always tell people, if you make enough money to support the payment, if you have enough money to put the down payment down, and usually you're either a day or a year, whatever the circumstance may be, you can actually buy a home.
Because I know people out there, they're paying anywhere from $1,800 to $5,300 a month in rent.
Yes, yeah. 99% of the time, even, of course, you're not going to get the rates of a conventional loan because they're non-conventional. If you qualified for a conventional, that's what we put you in. But it's still a lot less expensive than renting,
right.
And you still have all the advantages of home ownership.
That you wouldn't have if you're renting.
Right, and you know, this is what I tell people. I don't care what you're paying in rent. Sooner or later, when you own a home, you're going to pay it off. If you rent, you're going to have to rent for the rest of your life.
You're paying somebody else's
right.
mortgage off.
Yeah.
So I didn't know you could do it a day after.
You can. Now, keep in mind, depending on who structured your Chapter 13 or who structured your short sale or foreclosure or deed in lieu, usually the longer you are out of whatever event you had, the better your credit is. But I've seen people that went through a bankruptcy, foreclosure, and everything, and if you were just to look at their credit reports, they had perfect credit.
So, you know, I think one of the misunderstandings, and specifically with bankruptcies, right? I've seen people that have filed bankruptcy and they didn't realize that from that day forward, their condominium dues are now their responsibility again, that it doesn't drop off. So with a bankruptcy, is it from the date of the bankruptcy being discharged or the date of the bankruptcy being filed?
With Chapter 7, we look at discharge date. Okay. With Chapter 13, we actually, and I'm doing one right now, the family's right in the middle of a Chapter 13. And this is an FHA loan. And that's where some lenders will say, we will allow it. And some lenders may say, no, it's a little bit too risky. We're not going to lend in that situation. But I work for a lender that says, okay, remember, Chapter 13, you didn't just give everything back.
Right.
You've accepted responsibility. You're making, maybe it's partial payments, but at least you're saying I want to make as much as I can. And in Chapter 13, you don't have to be out of the bankruptcy to do it.
So, we work with a lot of people. If they don't need to foreclose and we can save their homes, we have attorneys we work with to try to help them save their homes. The fact that you're able to get people loans, and I know there's so many people out there that are afraid to make that phone call because you're right, they're embarrassed.
Yes.
And stuff happens. I mean, you guys hear all kinds of things.
I'm like the doctor of numbers. When you go to your doctor, no one's embarrassed that you have a cough. 9 other people that he just saw that day or she just saw that day had the same cough.
Right.
People come to me and it's like, you can tell that all of a sudden they don't talk us out and this is what happened. I said, look, you're not alone. You're far from being alone. So there's no reason to be embarrassed. You moved on, you've recuperated, and you can't change the past.
Right.
You can affect what's going forward. And for the right people, we're going to lend you the money, and just like we would if you didn't go through it.
Right, so. But even if they're still in it, like you're dealing with somebody right now, you guys have the mindset of helping people and working through whether it's a credit issue, a foreclosure, a short sale, whatever.
So like this client, they want to downsize. So they're in the middle of Chapter 13. Well, why would you lend somebody money? Okay, well, think about it. If you sold your house, bought a new house, and your new payment's less than your current payment, that's still a good, even though you're in bankruptcy.
Right, but you can afford it.
And you can, because we've shown the last 4 years they've been in this payment plan with the bankruptcy. You've made more payments than you're going to pay now, so you can actually afford it easier, if that's a term. But it's more affordable to you, so that's why we're willing to lend to somebody that's in the middle of a bankruptcy.
Which I think is important for people to understand, that there are resources out there if you get the right people, because everybody in business doesn't always have the knowledge base or the capacity to help. But when you have those resources in your business, you're a great, fantastic person to reach out to.
And just don't go based on what you search on the internet. Hey, I read this, okay? And I've read the same thing, good and bad. Again, what you got to do is go to a lender that you can trust, that you can talk to, and don't go based on, even if it supports what you think.
Well, and even the amount of years. Somebody could have a license for 20 years, but actually been in the industry working and practicing for 1.
Right.
So I always tell people, don't look at how many years somebody's been licensed. Get with somebody that's really knowledgeable and let them give you questions to ask to vet somebody, because everybody's brilliant when you're not that bright about something, or you're not that educated. They seem really smart, but once you become educated on whatever it is, then all of a sudden you're like, maybe they weren't so smart after all.
Yeah.
So how does somebody reach out to you to get some information and talk to you about their situation to see if they qualify or how they can qualify for a loan?
They can call me direct at 407-353-3750, or they can go on my website at wearenotthebanks.com.
And if you know anybody that's faced a hardship, foreclosure, short sale, bankruptcy, this is not a typical program. So please share the video with them and let them reach out to Brad and let him help them out.